Zillow just U-turned big time because they are now predicting that home values will decrease over the next 12 months. On top of that, they're now predicting that home sales will fall big time as well, on par with what we saw back in 2008. In today's video, I'll share Zillow's latest real estate market predictions, and of course, I'll give you my honest opinion about it as well. Before we get started, I invite you guys to subscribe to this channel right now if you haven't done so already, because I post frequent housing market updates so you guys can be more informed. I have a lot to share in today's video. I appreciate you, and let's begin today's video. So here is Zillow's latest real estate market predictions just posted on November 27th. Let's first talk about their forecast for home values. It says here, Zillow's national home value forecast was revised downward this month compared to the previous month due to persistently high rates, as well as signs that the months-long housing inventory crunch may be finally easing. Now, let me repeat that. Signs that the months-long housing inventory crunch may be finally easing. In other words, the huge increase of inventory levels that we saw really to start the year compared to this year. So right now, we're very close to being above last year's levels for inventory levels, whereas to start the year, we're at very high levels. And also compared to 1 month ago, the delta between this year and last year was greater than what we're seeing right now. So for example, here's a look at Realtor.com for the month of October compared to years past, going back to 2017. I really like their charts because they share pre-COVID levels, whereas Redfin's data center only goes back to 2020. So when looking at active listings, this is the number of houses for sale nationwide. This October, around 737,000, which is this line right here. The gold line is last year's levels, 2022. So to start the year, we had about 375,000 houses for sale. This year, we had just over 600,000. So nearly double the numbers we saw last year. What happened though, inventory levels shot up big time during the spring months last year, whereas this year only a slight increase. When Zillow's talking about this months-long housing inventory crunch, they mean that the difference between last year and this year is actually getting more narrow. So over the past 1 month, as you can see here, the difference between this year and last year is getting more narrow because inventory levels have been increasing this year ever since July at a faster pace compared to last year's levels. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens for November. I will have a video for you guys regarding Realtor.com's latest update for November, probably later this week. They tend to post their updates very close to month's end. So I would imagine that once they release November's numbers, we're likely to be higher compared to last year's levels. So that's basically what Zillow is saying here, because if inventory levels still increases, that of course means there's more options of home buyers, so more options to choose from, and therefore that puts downward pressure on prices. And it's basically economics 101, the balance between supply and demand. So in any case, Zillow now is expecting that on a national level, non-seasonally adjusted Zillow's home value index, which is a fancy way of saying their index of home values on a national level, they're now forecasting an increase of 3% this year compared to the start this year. That is down from their forecast from 1 month ago because in September, I should say in October, their forecast was a gain of 3.3%. So big picture here, they're now predicting that home values will increase 3% this year. Now, when looking at, this is by the way, home values, which is different when looking at Redfin and Realtor.com and other websites looking at the median sold price. In any case, so when looking at Redfin's most recent data for the median sold price nationwide, we're up by 4% through the 4 weeks ended November 12th this year. So in any case, it'll be interesting to see what will end up at the end of the year. My forecast is in the range of 0 to 5% overall by the time we hit the end of December. We'll have to see. Let's get back to their forecast here. It says, Their forecast over the next 12 months, though, this is from November this year through October of 2024, is fairly flat or a decrease of 0.2%. This is a big downward revision from their previous forecast because last month they predicted that home prices will increase 2.1% from October through September next year. All right, let's now talk about their housing market forecast for home sales because they are forecasting for 4.1 million existing home sales this year. That would represent an 18% decrease from 2022. By the way, my forecast, which I stated months ago, was in the range of 4 to 4.1 million. So I want to provide some context regarding this because their forecast of 4.1 million, that would be the fewest number of existing home sales since 2008. In other words, a 15-year low in home sales if this comes into fruition at 4.1 million. By the way, if we come in at 4 million or less, this would be the lowest levels since at least 1995. So let me share this with you. 4.1 million, you have to go back until 2008 when we only had 4.11 million. If we get below that number, this would be the slowest sales pace since 1995, when at that time we had 3,849,000 existing home sales nationwide. By the way, at 4.1 million compared to last year, that'd be a decrease of 18% right there from 5,030,000 now to 4.1 million. Compared to 2021, it'd be a giant decrease of 33%. And also from looking at 2019, a decrease of 23%. By the way, the National Association of Realtors, these numbers, by the way, agree to NAR. But NAR reported last week that for October, based on October's seasonally adjusted annualized pace, so the current sales pace this October was at 3.79 million. That was a very big decrease compared to previous years because that's actually the slowest sales pace since August of 2010. In other words, a 13-year low. So you may be asking yourself, what is needed in order to get to 4.1 million home sales this year? So here's a nerdy Excel spreadsheet I made for you guys. This is based on data from NAR looking at non-seasonally adjusted rates here. So actual number of houses that sold in the resale market of existing houses, excluding brand new home construction. So far this year, this is January through October, there's just under 3.5 million home sales. Again, their forecast is 4.1 million. Therefore, we would need 609,000 home sales in November through December this year. The average, again, would be 304,500. That'd be the average number that's needed in order to get to 4.1 million home sales. To give you guys some context here, November last year, there was only 325,000 home sales. Then in December, only 327,000. The average last year for November and December was 326,000, whereas we only need 304,500 this year to get to 4.1 million. So therefore, Zillow is now forecasting or predicting that we're going to have approximately 20,000 fewer existing home sales in November and December this year to get to 4.1 million. Just taking a step back here, to me this makes sense because last year, of course, home sales and home prices fell big time, and we had a huge decrease in sales in the last half of last year. And again, this year we're at 7 to 8% rates, and because of that, and of course because we have a low level of existing houses for sale, historically speaking, this makes sense to me that we're going to see a decrease in home sales for the remainder of the year compared to last year's levels. So I believe that their forecast at 4.1 million is going to be really close to what we actually see. But again, I'll stay true to myself here, saying that my forecast, again, is in the range of 4 to 4.1 million. We'll have to see who's right here. Zillow also provided an explanation of why they believe home values will decrease over the next 12 months here. It says new listings New listings is a measure of the amount of people listing their houses for sale. That's a new listing. So new listings on a national level, despite remaining historically low, have at least trended nearer to pre-pandemic norms over the past 2 months. So in English, that means that new listings are getting very close to pre-COVID levels. Whereas to start the year, we saw a huge decrease of new listings compared to 2018 and 2019. Now, the best way to share this is this right here. This chart is a little bit messy, but just bear with me here because I want to share this because this looks at the number of new listings in 2018, 19, as well as this year. I'm going to ignore 2020 and 2021. So in April, for example, this year, there was 332,000 new listings, people listing their houses for sale. This is far below April of 2018 as well as 2019. So the gray line there is 2018. The light green bar there, or light green line, is 2019. So in April 19 and 18, there was around 510,000 new listings. So therefore, there was around 180,000 more new listings compared to right now. Now look how this changes this October though, because this October, which is right there, there's around 310,000 new listings, right? Compare this to 2018 and 19, there was around 386,000. Therefore, we have approximately 75,000 fewer this October compared to pre-COVID levels. Compare that to April though, we were down by 180,000. So the delta between this year and 2018 and 2019 is actually getting much more narrow here. As you can see here, the black bar right here, new listings have been relatively flat, or I should say going down very, very slightly. Whereas in 2018, 2019, new listings were tanking big time, which is seasonal. This year, we are seeing a seasonal decrease, but not decreasing at the same rate it should be decreasing. And therefore, according to Zillow here, more houses on the market means less competition for each listing. One reason that Zillow's home value forecast was revised downward. So think of it this way. If you're looking to buy a house in a particular neighborhood, there's 10 houses for sale. Of course, that's going to cause bidding wars, and that's going to cause the prices on those houses to go up. In general, just generally speaking here. If there were going to be 1,000 houses for sale in that same neighborhood, of course, there's a lot of competition for those home sellers and therefore a lot of options for home buyers. So when supply increases, there's more options for home buyers, and therefore that puts downward pressure on prices. Now, maybe that's not the best example because we don't have a 10-fold increase of new listings, but in general, we're seeing new listings approaching pre-pandemic levels, which of course is causing inventory levels to increase. And of course, that will put downward pressure on prices and of course, forecasts for next year. Now, here's something I actually do not agree with Zillow though, because they say here that the rise of new listings getting very close to pre-pandemic norms. It says this may be an early sign that the effects of rate lock are easing as homeowners accept that higher rates are sticking around. So one thing I've been talking about for, over a year is because, that a lot of people are deciding not to list their houses for sale because they have rates of less than 3%, less than 4%. So why would they sell and take on a 8% plus rate if they're going to buy a house after selling? And of course, that is one of the main reasons why new listings were decreasing greatly here. But according to Zillow here, they're saying that the reason why new listings are actually getting a little bit closer to pre-COVID levels is because homeowners are accepting the fact that higher rates are sticking around. I would say that's true to a certain degree. Last year, we saw a huge uptick in rates. Rates more than doubled in less than 12 months. That has never happened before. That really shocked the housing market, and that's why new listings fell big time last year. So there is some kind of like sticker shock that occurred last year, whereas this year rates have been over 7% for quite some time. So therefore, we're not seeing that sticker shock that we saw last year. But what I will say is that I guess my thoughts regarding why new listings are increasing is because of uncertainty. People are worried about losing the equity in their houses because they're worried about the state of our economy and, of course, the uncertainty of our housing market as well. On top of that, we have very close, I think we have actually all-time record highs for credit card balances in the United States right now. And that's why a lot of people are doing cash out refis, even though they're taking on a higher rate. So they're getting equity out of their houses, taking on a higher rate because they want to pay off that high interest rate debt, credit card balances. So one theory I have, of course, is that because a lot of people are strapped right now, they have very high credit card balances. Rather than doing a HELOC or doing a cash out refi, they're just opting to sell their houses. Again, we're not seeing a huge uptick in new listings, but in my personal opinion, we're seeing some cracks in our economy. And this is one reason why new listings are starting to increase compared to pre-pandemic levels. Now, don't get me wrong though, because new listings are still decreasing here, but again, they're not decreasing at the same rate we saw last year and of course in years past as well. One more thing I do want to mention this is that it's going to be really interesting to see if new listings get to pre-COVID levels. So for example, when looking at new listings according to Redfin, this is for the 4 weeks ended November 12th, we're actually above last year's levels by 3.3%. That's a black line. When adding in 2020 and 2021, let's exclude 2022, you can see here that new listings are decreasing, but during this time of year, new listings tend to decrease much faster than they're happening right now. So if new listings start doing something like this, we could be in a scenario where new listings are up compared to 2020 as well as 2021. However, compared to 2019, 2018, we have a long ways to go. So right now, this October, according to Realtor.com, again, 737,000 new listings. But back in 2019, 2017, and 2018, we had over 1.1 million. On average, actually, in the range of 1.2 to 1.3 million. So we have a long ways to go in order to get to pre-pandemic levels in the number of new listings. Getting back to Zillow's latest housing market predictions here, another reason why they believe home values will decrease over the next 12 months is because mortgage rates have remained elevated. So take a look at this, because according to the Mortgage News Daily, as of Monday, November 27th, the average 30-year fix is at 7.35%. This is quite the big difference, to be exact, 65 basis points less than about a month ago. So about 1 month ago, in mid-October, the average rate was at 8.03%. Now it's at 7.35%. So rates over the past month or so have decreased by about 65 basis points, even though they're higher compared to 1 year ago. 1 year ago, the average rate for people with great credit was at 6.64%, an increase of 71 basis points compared to 12 months ago. However, when looking at the past 23 years though, you really can see how high these rates are. So the average 30-year fix, according to Freddie Mac, on our good Uncle Fred's website right here, for people with great credit, so far this month, I should say, the average is at 7.50%. This is slightly lower than October's 7.62% rate. But besides that month, at 7.50%, that's the highest rates we've seen going back to November of 2000, when at that time, the average rate for the month was at 7.75%. Just taking a step back here, and let me know what you guys think about this. But in my personal opinion, the future of our US housing market will depend on the balance between demand and supply. On the demand side, of course, we have very low levels of housing inventory. Of course, we have very low levels of housing affordability. And of course, that's causing demand to decrease greatly. On the supply side, of course, we have a low level of existing houses for sale, but we are starting to see a slight increase of new listings getting very close to pre-pandemic levels. So in my opinion, I'll say this over and over again, we're not going to see a giant surge of new listings unless people are forced to sell their houses. They lose their job, they're maxed out on their credit cards, et cetera, et cetera. So they're only going to be, I would imagine we're only going to see a strong increase of new listings unless people really need the money out of their houses and they decide to sell their houses. And if that happens, of course, that would put downward pressure on prices if we see a huge increase of inventory levels next year. Of course, time will tell. I'll definitely keep posted with the latest developments. If you guys got any value out of today's video, I appreciate you. Also hit the like button. I appreciate that as well. And consider subscribing. Hope you have an awesome day. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.